We have a right to carry a gun. Guns that can be used to hunt animals, for sport, self-defense, and to kill other human beings are legal in America. Where does this right come from? Our Constitution states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment. It was written in 1791. Back then, we didn't have a police force. Volunteers would keep watch over the town or village, and those volunteers wanted to carry guns. Although the Army was formed in 1775, those armed men only fought in wars. Isolated settlements and farms were protected by armed farmers and members of the community who volunteered to stand watch and defend the town against attacks. They were called militia. Colonial days were hard times. Europeans, many who had been poor or oppressed in their home countries, came to America for a fresh start. They arrived on the East Coast where Native Americans had been living for thousands of years. The Europeans tried to take the native land for themselves, so the Native Americans fought back. Europeans formed militias to protect themselves using knives, swords, and guns. Native Americans also protected themselves as best they could, but they did not have the same access to firepower. Some laws even prohibited Native Americans from buying guns. As more Europeans arrived in this new world, they pushed further west, causing more battles with Native Americans. Rifles were invented. They were used to kill Native Americans in greater numbers and then steal their land. At the same time, guns were used to kidnap millions of Africans from their homes and force them onto ships bound for North America and across the world. In America, guns were then used by militia to control the enslaved. Slave patrols were militia groups created to fight against uprisings of the enslaved who wanted freedom. Even some free African Americans by law were not allowed to carry guns for their self-protection. For most of this country's history, people of color did not have equal rights to self-protection. Equality under the law wasn't established until the 14th Amendment gave equal protection and due process to every person in America. Yet, even then, racial discrimination remained. When they legally carried weapons, some people of color were treated like criminals. Even today, there seems to be a double standard around who truly has the right to bear arms. Our modern police force was created in the 1800s, but by then, regular people had gotten used to having guns for their own protection. There were limits, but not many. For example, guns had to be visible since concealed weapons gave an unfair advantage. Guns were also not allowed in schools or churches by custom and sometimes by law. But as cities grew, having guns everywhere became dangerous. Plus, law enforcement was well organized and able to protect people. Militias were no longer needed. Laws were passed to restrict who could own a gun. Convicted felons, very young people, and those without legal permits could not own firearms. Today, although the Second Amendment is a constitutional right, each state has the power to decide who can have a gun. States give gun permits, not the federal government. Some states require background checks and limits on where you can carry a gun. Sometimes you don't know who might be carrying a firearm because the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that the right to bear arms includes carrying a concealed weapon, even in public. Although we have an army and police to protect us, America still has more guns than people, and more gun violence and mass murders than any other nation. Some groups argue we don't need any guns for self-protection. Other groups believe there should be no restrictions on guns at all. This is an ongoing debate. With all of our rights, there must be a balance between public safety and individual rights. Always remember, you have the power to influence political action with your vote. Let's review. The Second Amendment gives the right to bear arms. Bearing arms means owning a firearm. Today, Americans own guns for sport, self-defense, and because they have a constitutional right to do so. States can put some limits on these gun rights or no limits at all. And don't forget, voters have a voice to shape gun laws and policies. This is your democracy. Keep it strong.